Hey, this is Mike Casu, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week's guest is Dave Lipson. Dave is a member of the CrossFit seminar staff. He's a former professional baseball player and husband to Camille Leblanc Bazinet. We talk a lot about his experience on the seminar staff, how he goes about preparing for his lectures, how he coaches, his philosophy of coaching and programming, as well as at the end, we get into some stuff about relationships, what he's learned from his marriage, and so much more. I hope you enjoy the show.
Hey, Mike, this is Shane Mitro down in Phoenix, Arizona. Train at CrossFit Infernal in Chandler, Arizona, suburb of Phoenix. Been a big follower of the podcast and listen every week when you guys put out a new one and still catching up for the ones that I missed up until I started following a few months ago. Just had a quick question about success. You probably have touched on this, and I know you have done a few podcasts with Ben Bergeron and a few others about what separates athletes. But just wanted to get your opinion or somebody else that you have on that topic of what separates athletes, and maybe from a mental standpoint or a physical standpoint. But if you had two of the same athletes, I guess athlete A and athlete B, and they both trained for the same amount of hours and did the same program and did the same recovery as far as nutrition and stretching and all that goes in with that, what would separate athlete A and athlete B from each other if athlete A was going to the games consistently and maybe even won a few times, and athlete B did not, but did the exact same thing in a day in and day out process? It doesn't even have to be the games. It can be just an everyday athlete that goes to a CrossFit gym, or a 50 or 60-year-old grandmother or mom, or whatever the case. Just what separates two people from a mental aspect and maybe even a physical aspect if they're doing the exact same thing. All right, Mike, appreciate it. Listen to your How to Build Strength and Build a Thriving Business podcast right now. Love it and appreciate it. Keep putting out that good content. Thanks.
Hey, Shane, awesome question, man. This is something that is on a ton of people's minds. I'm going to start out by challenging the question because, first off, I don't think any two athletes ever prepare the same. And in competition in general, I truly believe that the more prepared athlete wins. The way to gain a competitive edge is to prepare more. And so one of the things in your question is regarding mindset. And in a second, I'll talk to you about actually how to prepare your mindset. But in general, everything is in the preparation before the competition. Physically, if you're doing everything the same physically, you're on the same exact training program, you're doing the same amount of stretching, going to the same amount of chiropractor sessions, etc., then one of the big differentiators can be movement quality. So what's the athlete's range of motion, technique, all of those types of things. And it's very hard to see two athletes with the same exact technique and movement quality. So all else being equal physically, then the athlete with better technique and movement quality is going to triumph. Now, how do you actually prepare your mind? First, I think it's important to understand that when we're talking about having a great competitive mindset, it's not just about being able to suffer more or having like a killer instinct out on the court or field or whatever sport we're talking about. One of the biggest things is having the mental toughness, the mindset to put in the preparation for an extremely long period of time and doing so consistently. The athlete that's able to be more consistent for a longer period of time is going to make more progress and overall be more competitive. I did a podcast with Michael Gervais of the Seattle Seahawks about a year ago, and we were talking about mindset, and he said that something to the effect that all mindset work begins with this concept of knowing thyself or understanding yourself. Two of the things that he teaches every single one of his athletes are first to start up a mindfulness practice, and second to start journaling. So the mindfulness practice, this can be anything from 10 minutes to an hour plus of basically sitting meditation. You can do it before a workout, right when you wake up, right before bed. You can download an app or just sit there in silence and focus on your breathing. And some things that are inside of your control are things like showing up 20 minutes early to get a full warm up in, staying off your phone for the entire training session so that you can stay focused the entire time, focusing on a specific cue in one of your movements that day. So focus on things in this journal that are inside of your control, because, and this is a much larger conversation, focusing on things outside of your control is absolutely pointless and aimless. So doing this journal is just another way to start to understand yourself better, and also to make sure that you're getting the most out of every single training session. To bring it full circle back to your question, it is actually the preparation that separates athletes. One of the only untapped forms of preparation left is in the mindset. Everyone's preparing their bodies. Everyone's recovering. What many people are still not doing is preparing their minds. So those are two things that, if you do them consistently for a long period of time, are going to absolutely transform not only your performance, but your entire life in general. Hope that helps. What's up? This is Mike Casu, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. I'm here with Dave Lipson. Dave, thank you so much for making some time to do this with me today, man.
Mike, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So I want to start out. I have so much respect for all of the L1 staff that I've interacted with over the years, whether it be in person or taking the seminars myself. And one of the things I admire most is your ability to present the material in such an articulate and concise way. So I'm wondering, how do you specifically prepare for all of the different talks that you have at the different seminars that you're a part of?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, thanks. We've all developed, and our ability to give lectures and train is like serves a lot of parallels to just being an athlete. Training is like you just need to get a lot of reps and get good coaching and have goals and something to measure against. So we're very rehearsed, and we have excellent mentors, people that help and guide us to develop our skills as trainers and lecturers and presenters at the seminar. The idea with the seminar, it's kind of an interesting story. Is like, these seminars, the level one, it started with the owner and founder, Coach Greg Glassman. And he's obviously such a wonderful, charismatic speaker. And, the seminar kind of started with these people around the country that were following CrossFit.com, or they're military law enforcement guys or bros in their garage like me, just like going to the website, and they wanted to know how to do this stuff better. And so I think it was the Colorado Patrol who first contacted Greg and said, "Hey, we want to bring our guys out to do a seminar with you." And he goes, "We don't have a seminar." And then the guy goes, "Well, we're coming out." So that's how the seminar started. And Coach is like, he's a brilliant guy. And when you hear him speak, you almost have to slow the tape down sometimes, because it would be like, what the fuck did he just say? That's goddamn brilliant. And it was really just kind of like off the cuff, him talking about, CrossFit and training and intensity and programming and nutrition. And he was just basically speaking. And as these seminars evolved and they started gaining traction and more people wanted to come, I think it got to the point where somebody was like, "Hey, we got to start writing this stuff down, because this is gold." And there's only so much Greg to go around. So they started developing a staff to help Greg give the seminar. And eventually the staff started giving some of the same lectures. And some of the original people who stepped in for Greg right off the bat were the directors of training, Nicole Carroll and Dave Castro. And these two were the first people, we call them flow masters, or basically the person running the gig, who started running the seminars, and the staff grew. The idea was to kind of take what Greg was so amazing at, which is educating, inspiring, and entertaining people in a really articulate and brilliant way, and try to replicate that so that we could have multiple seminars and be able to spread the word more. And so these guys, Dave and Nicole, kind of took the reins and started creating the framework for, setting the bar in terms of lecturing and the quality of training. Because the honest to God truth now is, when someone comes through the level 1 seminar, this is potentially the last best example that they might ever have of how CrossFit should be done, how it should be coached, and the expectations of the program. So it needs to be a pretty dang good example in terms of how we explain the program and how we execute it and the application of it. I think originally, as the staff grew, it was basically people watching these lectures, and the staff would take notes on the lectures and try to give them the same way. And then we came up with a training guide, like a binder, hard copy training guide. And at one point, somebody made videos of the lectures and like, hey, just do it like this. And now we've got like a really dialed in, standardized kind of application where people can look at the framework of the lecture and all of the verbatim content, and all of the very important bolded material. But they also have their personal creativity to bring who they are as a person, as a lecturer, and some of their own stories to some of these lectures to bring them life. And I think I've worked like 250 seminars. So when I give the What is CrossFit lecture, I hope it's good. I'm hoping that I've got it like dialed in at this point. I'm not saying the wrong thing or messing up the timeline too much, or like, delivering the material in the way that it needs to be delivered, to ensure that our message can transcend and we can basically pass it on to these people who are going to come through that seminar and do amazing things. My favorite thing in the world is running into somebody who came through our seminar 7 years ago, and they're like, hey, Dave, you were my level 1 coach, and you told me this, that, and the other thing, and now I've got a gym and all these members, and I've done these cool things. And it's very rewarding to feel like in some way maybe I or the staff were a part of that, while this person, in some ways, were the people who actually planted the seed and gave them that jumping off point, and that's super rewarding. Very fun part of the job.
That's awesome, man. That's such a good story. And for everyone out there, Dave was one of my L1 trainers. So you actually told me something that made me almost quit, but I stuck it out, and here I am today.
There you go. Oh no.
Just messing with you.
Like, Dave made me feel terrible.
Yeah. I guess I didn't do Fran fast enough or something like that. But I got through it. So what early on, and I say this because I rarely have seen any mistakes at these seminars at all. So you guys must do a good bit of rehearsal. So I understand you're watching people that have been doing it a long time and are really, really great at executing these lectures. But how do you prepare for, say, your first lecture? What was your personal process?
There are definitely mistakes. You just don't pick up on them.
Right.
Because they're like, everyone on staff is like, oh, that person fucked up or whatever. But, the basic process for preparing, and everyone does it a little differently, is first you listen to people give the lecture. And you follow in your notes, and you kind of watch the way that they deliver and emphasize the really big points in the lecture, how they make transitions. And then you kind of start reading the content. And for me, it was like literally standing in front of a mirror and having the notes at my side and trying to give it to myself, and then doing it again and trying not to fuck up too bad. And then when it came time to lecture, and I think there was always a lot of pressure to make sure you said all the stuff and all the right stuff. But at that point, my goal was always just to try to give the best possible lecture I could give. And if I missed something or something wasn't said completely right, like, we have a good enough staff and people looking over us that like they can come up and quickly correct it, and you wouldn't even realize they corrected it because they do it so savvy. But yeah, I mean, that's it would be the same way that you would really rehearse and give anything. If you're rehearsing lines for a movie or a play or something. The only difference is this stuff is pretty personal to me and to a lot of people on staff. So, we just want to do it justice and actually bring life to it by bringing some of our own experiences and passion, because you can read this shit in a book,
Right.
like you can go on the CrossFit Journal and hear the same line said, but to hear it said from a person who's lived it, and to hear it said from a person who, is believing it and is basically telling you this is how you can change your life and the lives of people around you, that makes a big difference. So I think like every time we do give lectures, like we always get feedback on them. We'll get, just like we get feedback on everything we do. They'll say, hey, this happened really well. Try to do this thing better next time. And over the course of all the repetitions of giving lectures, it should be pretty refined. If it's not, that means you're probably not really working on it hard enough.
Mm-hmm. Who of all the people that you've worked with, who would you say is the person you look up to the most, and what have you learned from that person?
Oh man, I mean,
I know that's tough.
I don't know. I mean, I've had like, you'd have to be more specific than that, Michael, because I came from a background in sports, and then I had some really great coaches and mentors and training, and like, if we're talking like specifically on the seminar staff.
I'm sorry. I should have been more clear. Of the, say the L1 staff.
There are people that like, some of them have like taught me some really specific great things. And I think about like some of the training staff, like Chuck Carswell is like a veteran on the training staff, and he's amazing. Just what he puts into the seminar, it just sets the bar really high. Eric Preston is from out in San Diego. He was what we call my mentor for the level 1 seminar staff. And he has an amazing, genuine ability just to invest heavily in each person to create the best experience for them. And I've definitely learned a lot from him. Personally, like Dave Castro, like the guy changed my life, like without Dave, I don't even know, I'd probably be doing something completely different, but he's opened up so many doors for me, and he's a continual friend, and like he just really inspires me, the way that he's so creative, and his sight and vision of everything that's going on in and around the seminars and CrossFit and the games is just like, really, it's an aptitude that a lot of people don't give him enough respect for. So yeah, he's like those three guys are some of my favorite people I would look to for guidance. And then, like I came from baseball and ball sports. I've had some like amazing coaches that have taught me things, both as a man and an athlete and a coach, that you can kind of apply to your life no matter what it is you're doing. So we've got outstanding people on staff. The process for getting on staff is a rigorous one, but the first part of our screening process is just trying to find a person who is just a solid person, somebody who people want to be around, who wants to give a lot of themselves, who has a genuine aspiration just to give back, and a passion for CrossFit and a passion for service. And that's step number one. We can teach people how to do lectures and how to train groups, but to find those really special people who have that kind of charisma and passion, and the fact that we've been so good about finding them and screening them is why we have such a strong staff, and why people come out of level 1 really jazzed up, being like, that was fucking awesome. So yeah, it's an honor. It's an honor to get to be as a part of the staff. It's something I'm probably most proud of in my life. And it's something we're going to, as we move forward and as CrossFit moves forward, we're going to kind of continue to try to set that bar high.
Well, it's a really dialed in team. No matter what group you end up getting as your staff, it's just a very well-oiled machine. So I imagine you could learn something from just about anyone on that staff at any given moment, which is really cool.
It's a very diverse staff. I mean, it's not like everyone on the CrossFit Level 1 staff is a former athlete. We have people who have insane academic backgrounds. We have people on staff who are doctors. We have people on staff who have musical backgrounds in dance. We have people on staff who don't have the use of their legs. We have people on staff who are young and old. I mean, I think the common thread amongst all of them is the fact that they are pretty much all outstanding people, and they have a real passion for CrossFit and a passion for service. And I think that's kind of one of those intrinsic values that Greg had, and why people love to be around Greg, is they could feel that care and passion, and they just wanted to be around the guy. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to just recreate that, like you gotta find those people. And the fact that we are so diverse, I mean, we're across every continent in the United States, it adds strength to the staff. Now we're able to speak to more people, and that's a real asset. And that process, it's gonna continue, and even our seminars evolved a lot over the past 10, 15 years. I mean, I've been on staff only for like 7, but it's a completely different seminar from when I took it. Because we're always trying to do things better.
I want to talk for a second about the CrossFit programming prescription. I think that I know that part of the seminar is lost by a lot of gym owners, and so I would love you to, however you want, just kind of briefly explain what that like basic prescription is. Because what I want to talk about after is what you think about things like gyms having a strength bias in their programming and stuff like that, and kind of get into that a little bit.
Okay, cool. So let me start with our prescription in terms of programming from a broad perspective. Our program's prescription is constantly varied functional movements executed at a high intensity. I think people say that and they nod their head like they understand it, but a lot of times I don't think they truly understand it. So variance, it's everything that involves broad categories like weightlifting and monostructural movements and gymnastics. It involves all different types of equipment. It involves all different types of loading ranges. It involves all different kinds of durations and every movement you can expose to the body. Yes, we're going to use like functional, full body, high powered movements, but we're going to do it as in many different creative ways as we possibly can to give the broadest exposure. And I think when people think variance, they think, oh, well, I'll lift heavy and then I'll do some conditioning, but that's not really variance if every day is the same. If it's always lifting and then conditioning, then it's not constantly varied. It's constantly predictable, and it's constantly routine. We say things like, hey, routine is the enemy, or our specialty is not specializing. And I think what's happening in a lot of affiliates is they're starting to get into a pattern, and in doing so, they're no longer really doing CrossFit. They're starting to do something that is CrossFit-esque, but not truly the program. And the program at its foundation is the most effective way for building a broad athletic base of general physical preparedness or a state of readiness. And I think people have maybe seen that state of readiness and almost put it on the back burner a little bit in lieu of maybe doing more strength or trying to fit more into a class. But the idea here for 99.9% of people is not like going and competing in the CrossFit Games or just having to get stronger. It's being able to create an athlete that's going to thrive in any situation that I can put them in. Not just good at the gym, but good at life. So why would you only use a barbell? You never encounter a barbell in life. When was the last time you went outside and you were like, oh, look, a perfectly balanced barbell?
Right.
It's always something fucking weird. It's like a sandbag or a stone, or you're moving wood, or you're carrying a bag on your shoulder running through terminals at the airport. You're trying to chase after a dog that just ran in the street. Like it's not, it needs to have a broader exposure. Also in terms of like the durations of time, like if we're always kind of training in one time domain, then we're losing exposure to fitness. You have to be able to do things that last hours. I know that in a CrossFit gym, usually classes don't last for hours, but that just advocates the idea of using your fitness and learning and playing new sports. or even in the affiliates, being able to do a workout that is a 45-minute workout, going and running a 10K with your class. Like if your athletes can't run a 10K and do it well, they're not fit. That's the bottom line. It's just there's no getting around it. I don't care how fast their Fran time is. If they have to walk during the 10K, or if it's a pitiful score, they're not fit.
Right.
And the idea that more is better is completely false.
Mm-hmm.
More isn't better. Better is better. Better is defined by results. We measure these results based on work capacity across broad time and modal domains. So if you're looking objectively at a program, you need to be able to see the deadlift getting higher, the mile time getting faster, the filthy 50 score in a quicker time. You need to be able to see these things and have tangible improvement, not just doing something saying like, well, I think this is what we're supposed to do. And that's what's so special about the program, is that we can prove our results to people with numbers.
Right.
All these other fitness programs, freaking, just to put a comparison out there, whether it's like P90X or Insanity or Zumba or yoga or running triathlons, like a lot of these methodologies will say like, hey, this is the best way for developing fitness, but they can't prove it. But we can, because we have a number for it. Mm-hmm. If you have a scale, if you have a tape measure, if you're able to count rounds and reps, we can show you how fit you are exactly, and being able to also show improvement. And with that, the best way to get that improvement, to increase work capacity across broad time and modal domains, is with CrossFit. When you start just kind of putting a laundry list of stuff in your classes, for example, let's say every day we kind of do like a lift followed by a conditioning workout. Essentially, two things get sacrificed. The first thing that gets sacrificed is variance. So you're losing exposure and you're going to have gaps in your fitness. There are going to be areas that you'll struggle. The second area you start to sacrifice is intensity, which I think is the worst part.
Right, no doubt.
Because intensity gets you the results. And you need to be intense. I mean, the work has to be really fucking hard for you to be able to create a change in your body. Hard in a way that you're not comfortable with it being hard. Hard in a way that you want to quit. Hard in a way that you have to actually get over the hump and create an adaptation, even if it's a mental adaptation for you pushing through the toughness, or a physical adaptation, as you get to the point of physical failure. But if that's not happening, the progress is going to be slow, or it's not going to be progress at all. And a great example of this is just looking at the open. I mean, the workouts in the open are so simple. Most of them aren't even very heavy. Most of them don't involve that much skill, but for some reason, these are like the 6 worst workouts of everyone's year, because they're actually being intense in those workouts. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? That's how you're supposed to train. And so when you have something like, you're doing strength before conditioning work, essentially what you're doing is you're going to end up bastardizing one element for the other, where maybe you don't have enough time to devote to the strength work to actually get the time and intensity and volume in there to get an adaptation. Or maybe you hit the strength hard, but you just mail it in during your conditioning workouts. And what's a better way to do that is just to have that, whatever the stimulus is that day, that's the stimulus. If the idea is to do strength work, then have a dedicated heavy day, go as heavy as you possibly can, get a PR, and then go back to whatever you're doing the next day. But the reason why people think they need more is because they're just not intense enough in their workouts. Mm-hmm. And I think, from a class planning perspective also, when you pack that much stuff in the class, you lose the ability to actually coach the movement very well. You can't, I don't know where you could spend, 15 minutes coaching the mechanics of a squat clean if you've got to get lifting in and conditioning in, and it's got to be done in like a 50-minute window. We give examples of this in level 2, where we kind of show how you could run a mock CrossFit class and how to plan the class structure. But essentially the idea here is, as a coach, you need to be developing the skills, mm-hmm. coaching and refining the movement. And that takes time and practice and repetition, not so much with weight, but just just watching an athlete move and making them work for a better position. And that takes a lot of time. And I feel like if coaches don't know how to do that, what they do instead is they just have them do more stuff, and there's not as much coaching.
Right. And they, members want to feel, a lot of members want to feel, they want to be laying in a pool of sweat at the end of the workout. And so I think a lot of gym owners fall into the trap of thinking, okay, I have to just make sure they're working out as hard as possible for 60 minutes. So let's pack as many things in there as I can. It's crazy to me how many gyms I've gone to that literally they do not teach a single thing unless it's in the middle of a WOD, right? Which is a very difficult, it's a difficult place to teach very technical movements like a snatch or a jerk, or things like that, where you're breathing heavy, you're trying to go as quickly as possible. So, that development of skill kind of gets lost by the wayside.
Yeah, and like, just because you're not breathing heavy or sweating or feel like you're going to die doesn't mean it's not hard. I mean, let me tell you something. Like, we run as a group on the air squats, right? We go through squat, front squat, and overhead squat with a PVC pipe for a full hour. And by 20 minutes into the squats group, everyone is dying. And all they're doing is holding positions and working on pushing their knees out and lifting their chest up more, sitting back on their heels a little bit. But they're fucking dying because we're making them work for those better positions. And that's good coaching, is like, if you keep doing what you're doing, if you're comfortable, you're not getting better. And as a coach, this is a valuable skill to learn how to do, is like, how do I make people work for better movement? That will challenge them. But imagine if you don't know how to do that, I can assume that you would just kind of feel like, oh, they're not working hard enough and I'm just going to move on. So that's why developing your skills as a coach is so important. It parallels training. You need someone to review how you're coaching, how you're able to see and correct movement, your ability to manage a group. And there's no better place to do that than at the CrossFit level 2, because every week, like I said, I split between level 1s and level 2s. The level 1 is a broad brush base of all the what and why of CrossFit, how to implement the program as a coach or an athlete. The level 2 is a coach's development course, which is meant to be an assessment on somebody's coaching skills. And we basically go through, highlight all the different criteria that go into coaching. We're able to assess them and say, here are things that you do right. Here's what you're not doing so well. Here's how to fix it. And the biggest adjustment people make in that level 2 is actually just coaching, just actually learning how to do something really simple, like see and correct a movement and make an athlete work to get a correction to stick at a very basic level. So if you don't have that process happening in some shape, form, or fashion, you're not going to know that what you're doing isn't very effective, and it's probably not going to get much better either. Just like the same way, if you were rounding your back on a snatch and nobody ever told you that, you just wouldn't know, right? So, it's important to continue to develop your skills as an athlete and also as a coach. Otherwise, the progress won't happen. And that's kind of like what we talk about when we use that word virtuosity, is doing something common uncommonly well. In terms of coaching, it's just doing the simple things in coaching very effectively, which means that you don't need to do more. In a lot of cases, less is more. But better will just be defined on how well you can get people moving. Right.
I saw this really awesome quote by a friend of mine, Sean Pastuch. He owns Active Life RX. It was something like, coaches, you need to start taking the warm up seriously, and then your athletes will start taking the warm up seriously. Something to that effect, which is so true. Like so many coaches, and myself included, I've been guilty of this in the past. Just like kind of treating it as a, I don't know, like it doesn't matter, just being very lackadaisical about the warm up. And then so they just don't take it very seriously. Some people don't even show up on time for it because it's like, it's not even important. So once we start taking things seriously and showing people how important the little things are, then they will follow.
You're completely right, man. I mean, demonstration as a coach is so important. Every person you coach will do exactly what you do, 1 degree shittier. And you set
I like that. We're going to blow that up.
You set the tone as an affiliate, as a coach, as a gym owner, where like, hey, you know what? If you want your athletes to move really well, then you better fucking move well yourself. Otherwise, they're going to do what you do. If you're sitting there saying, hey, I got to squat below parallel when you do your wall balls, and they see you in the corner whacking off, not even going down, below parallel or hitting the target,
right?
That sends a conflicting message. If you want athletes to care about movement, then it starts with you investing and showing that. You can even do things like, displaying to athletes and setting the tone in your affiliate that you have to earn the weight or you have to earn the speed with good movement. Mm-hmm. And that completely changes up the value system in the gym or what you are prioritizing. Yes, intensity is important, but mechanics and consistency have to come before it. So if that doesn't happen, people are just going to do whatever the fuck they want to do. Mm-hmm. And you're just going to get used to their shitty movement and nothing's going to change. If you want the people in the gym to care about the gym, to say, hey, this is your home, we got to take care of it, we got to put the equipment away, we've got to cheer on our classmates, that starts with you. You have to show that pride and care in the facility. You have to make sure that you're the one that's setting the example. And even in the program, if we're sitting here saying, hey, CrossFit's the best way to get fit, but I have a special program, well, that sends a conflicting message. They're going to be like, well, I should do the special program. So I would encourage, coaches and affiliate owners to be that example, because everyone's going to emulate what you do, just not as well. And anytime I hear, complaints of people like, hey, my athletes don't want to listen to me, or I have a hard time getting the athletes to train hard. Well, guess what? You can't, that's your responsibility. You set the tone for the affiliate. This is your house. And the honest to God truth is, if you're running a really good, tight ship, there are going to be some people who might not fit into your program. And that's fine. Because if they don't and they're in there, it can easily become a thing where it's like a pervasive cancer entering into the gym, creating these cliques and fracturing the foundation of what you're trying to build. Mm-hmm. So, you set the standard, and I don't know why we've gotten away from this kind of unapologetic explanation and standard of what should happen in the gym. When I started, like, CrossFit was like Fight Club, like, hey, you're either in or you're out. And this is how we do things here. And that's it. I even see it like in gym memberships sometimes. It's like, hey, you could buy a 1-week membership or a 3-day membership, or we're going to do a discount, and we're really trying to appease these people, when really that's not our way to help them. Our way to help them is by saying, hey, here's how you get fit. Here's what the program is. There's a low barrier to entry. If you're on board, you're completely on board. And now you have these dedicated, enduring, and very valuable members that you've been able to impact in a really strong and meaningful way. But if you can't do your job with them, if they're not showing up, or you're constantly trying to compromise your program for them, you're never going to be any good for them. Mm-hmm.
I saw a quote yesterday that said that a fish stinks from the head, right? Which means if there's something going on in your organization that you don't like, then the first place to look is at yourself. I thought that was a really awesome way to look at it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we get caught up in what's kind of like new and sexy. Mm-hmm. What affiliates are doing. I mean, I think a great resource for people out there to look at is go to affiliates that have been around for a while. Not the ones who have started off in a 10,000 square foot space in a retail space and have been doing this for 3 years. Look at the affiliates who started in a tiny garage in 2008 and are still around and are now crushing it with 500 members in a huge space, who kind of have organically grown there. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you those are the affiliates that have been uncompromising in their values. It's tough now because there are so many affiliates, and people sometimes forego that growing process of spending the time struggling, just coaching one athlete and two in a small group and building that skill set, where they're just kind of just throwing up a CrossFit flag in a big space and say, okay, now give me your money. And then when they can't make rent and their priorities go from impacting people to trying to hit the bottom line,
right,
it becomes a snowball effect. You can't pay your coaches enough. It's a swinging door. You're constantly trying to get new members in the door. People are always flipping over. The quality of classes are bad because the coaches don't have the skill sets to handle half the amount of people that are even in the class. And you lose really at its core what's so special about CrossFit. The idea of like, hey, this is personal training in a group setting, and we can get you fitter in 15 minutes than you were doing it 2.5 hours at your global gym, just kind of futzing around playing patty cake. So, like, we don't want to lose that. I think it's hard sometimes for people to just keep it simple. Sexy is really, it's always going to be the easy way out, but the hard way and the enduring way is to go back to foundations and just go back to simple things. We're just trying to get people to move well, get fit, and have fun. They're gonna be bonded through that idea of shared suffering, and fundamentally, fit communities, strong people. They change the world, and we don't want that process to stop. We want that to kind of continue and start to transcend as our original. People are getting older. Affiliates have been around for a while. It's very easy to forget where we came from. But I always think back to that first gym I went to. It was a place in New York City in the basement of a church. There was only one class. It was like at 5:30 a.m. And I would get up at like 4:30, ride my bike to this church, go down to the basement, and basically throw some mats down and train with what was now CrossFit Gotham. And I was just thinking about, like, why did I feel the need to go there? Like, why was that so special that I would get up that early and go to this gym? There was not even a bathroom. There was like blood and sweat on the floor. And the reason is because what I was getting there was something that I couldn't get anywhere else. Now, I was getting the best possible training. It wasn't about how clean the gym was or how expensive the membership was. Like, I would have paid double.
right,
But it was the fact that I felt like I had something really unique and special there in the care and the quality of training that I could not get anywhere else. I had access to like great training facilities. I could have gone to Velocity Sports and trained with an Alico barbell and done all this other really nice stuff, but I was going here because the training fucking worked.
right. And it's one of the things that people don't talk about often enough is the mental effect it has. A term that I used to use early on is it felt like when I would get done with these workouts that it kind of turned the volume down on life. And it took, it made where I used to get stressed out. I had this new perspective on, well, at least it's not a fucking CrossFit workout, right? Because these things were so challenging and I was just able to deal with life on life's terms a little bit better. And so it was that mental change in me that hooked me as much as the physical.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the biggest adaptations. And that's why, when I'm walking through an airport and, I see somebody like look down at my Reebok Nanos, or they see my CrossFit t-shirt and I see their CrossFit t-shirt, they throw me like a gang sign.
Yeah.
They're like, "What's up?" Because I think, that idea of like, CrossFitters and the shared suffering and that process that everyone goes through, whether it's physical or psychological pain, that they're overcoming. Mm-hmm. That's something that bonds and brings us together. Like this guy's just like, hey, yeah, I know this guy knows what's up. Like he thrashes himself. He knows how to work hard. He knows how to be honest mm-hmm. and fucking just get it done. And he's not, it's kind of like a no bullshit idea. But there are so many changes. Strong people become weak people become strong, timid people become confident. It just changes you. Mm-hmm. It just makes you better. It makes you a better person, whatever that means. And for some reason, like it goes way beyond the gym. If you're in a bad job, you get out of the bad job. If you're in a bad marriage, you get out of the bad marriage. You realize that these things that you're hiding from, that you're afraid of, they're not so fucking bad, because if you can go through that in the workout, there's a confidence that's built. There's a pathway in your brain that you're overriding, that's telling you, I can do it. I can do this. Mm-hmm. And that's like one of the best things to see. I know that we've done some really interesting things, and I don't think we fully understand just the effect of high intensity exercise or just CrossFit and that process, what happens in the brain. But I know that we've had huge success with people with PTSD. We've had success with people with depression, with all kinds of neurological and mental disorders. There's something that's happening there that is using CrossFit as medication. And I think that as we move forward, we need to continue to look at that. We need to study what's actually happening here, because I'd rather have somebody coming in and crushing themselves and being part of a community than slamming Zoloft.
Right.
And even right now, like, I have a family member who's going through some struggles, and he's struggling with depression and a little bit of alcoholism, and he's basically just doing stuff we know isn't good. And my first reaction was, they wanted to give him some antidepressants and some medication and have him see a therapist. And I said, first things first, get him in a CrossFit gym, get him eating well. Just don't even worry if it's going to work or not. Just going there and starting that process. Even if you don't think it's going to work, just start. And I guarantee you, things are going to start to evolve and change in the right direction, because there are changes that are happening in the brain that are affecting that frontal lobe, that are creating more neurological pathways. They're basically keeping you out of the dark place. Mm-hmm. And when the brain stops being excited, it just reverts back to that dark place. It reverts back to that negative thinking.
Right.
So
it gives you a way, something very tangible to feel confident in. Right. No matter what your fitness level, you build such integrity in yourself, such trust in yourself, because you just walked through something that seemed almost impossible 5 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, and now you're standing on the other side of it, and it just brings this new sense of accomplishment and confidence.
Yeah, I mean, life is hard. You have to purge, and like. I think things, the silly things kind of start to melt away once you've actually been through the program and been through that process long enough. I think it kind of puts things into perspective to some degree, but it also creates a new sense of ego. I mean, we say like, hey, check your ego at the door. Everyone is going to get hurt here. Mm-hmm. There's not going to be one person that doesn't get beat by this workout. And we don't care what you do, how old or young or fat or slow or athletic or not. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you work and you take yourself to that threshold, because that's the point of the program. And then when we start valuing that instead of some of the more silly, trivial stuff, it like you said, the volume just gets turned down. It's like that scene in Fight Club where the boss is talking and it's like, blah, 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 blah. This is like, you're not even hearing it. Like Cam has a really interesting story she tells about some of the girls in her gym. And I know that this happens in affiliates all over the country and the world. But, she talks about like the girl who came in the first day and she had like a big baggy t-shirt and basketball shorts. And then the shorts started getting a little smaller and it turned into a tank top. And now she's in booty shorts and a sports bra.
Nice.
And it's because people like, yeah, they're proud of their bodies, but they also don't give a fuck. Like, they just want to work hard. And that's something beautiful to see, that process happen. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's just watching a butterfly kind of come out of its cocoon,
Right. Something you talked about, people throwing gang signs at you when you're walking through the airport, made me think of this. I was in Florida a few days ago and I walk into a grocery store. I had no like CrossFit gear on me whatsoever. And I had like basic Nike tennis shoes, and this big guy he saw me walk in. He looked like he had been doing some bodybuilding that morning or whatever. And I walk in and he's like, "Oh, hey, what's up, man?" Like, there's like all kinds of people around, but he just had to tell me, hey, because another big guy that goes to the gym walked in. I was howling with laughter walking down the aisle. I thought it was so funny.
Yeah. I'll tell you, like, at a time in this country when there are so many divisions, so much judgment happening, and so many divisive opinions, this is something that can really bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I love that. Like, we don't see anything. We don't see colors or ages or political designations or anything like that. We just see CrossFitters and people that share that same value system and that want to work hard and change the world and be an example. That's it.
Hell yeah, man. All right, I have a few more questions for you. I want to shift gears before we wrap it up. I want to talk about relationships a little bit. So first off, I'm very open with this in my life about how challenging it's been for me to be in a relationship with such a kick-ass woman. Someone that's so confident, successful, driven, etc. Especially when we first met, and still now from time to time, I would often compare myself and feel like I was in competition with a D. So I'm curious, have you ever dealt with any of those similar feelings with Camille being in the spotlight? And if so, how do you deal with that internally as well as in your communication with her?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think when I was growing up, like I grew up playing baseball, and I feel like most of my value as a young man was based on how well I was playing baseball that day.
Right.
And because I was a decent player, like, I got a lot of attention, and I took that as basically my worth, you know, like, hey, everyone's talking about this or that, and this is Dave, the baseball player. And then after going to college, starting to play professionally, it kind of becomes part of your identity. And I feel like through my career, like, I had that time to be selfish and to be just a very focused person on one thing. But after my baseball career ended, I kind of let go of that a little bit. Like, I was over it. I knew that, you know, I'm Dave, and it's a really hard thing as an athlete, playing a sport your whole life, and then one day you're no longer playing the sport.
Right.
And, you know, like, you basically, you attach a lot of your worth as a human to you know, how well you're doing, what level you're at, or what people are saying about you, whatever it is. And then, you know, for me, it was getting to the realization that I'm not going to be in the big leagues, and I'm not going to come back and play another season. And it reminded me of that movie Zoolander, when he's walking outside after Hansel comes and, like, you know, does his little flash dance, and he goes, "Who am I?" You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, who am I? And you have to really go through, it's a hard process of deciding, like, who are you as a person? Like, what's your value as a person outside of what you do in as your career or your sport or your passion or whatever it is. And, you know, for me, it took a while to kind of go through that process. But after I had kind of gotten over the hump, like, I found CrossFit, and the CrossFit gave me a lot of things. First of all, it gave me a career, because I was terrified of getting a real job. Like, being a professional baseball player, it was like, oh shit, summer break is still out, and I got to do that for like 10 more years than anyone else.
Yeah.
And it was just like living in Howard Johnson hotels and getting ready for the next season and playing ball, but I didn't have to really get a real job because I was going to go back and play ball again, and didn't need an apartment because I was going to be moving around. And then things got kind of serious, and I was really terrified because I didn't know specifically outside of baseball what I really loved. And CrossFit kind of fell in my lap accidentally. And I was, you know, kind of training people in the off season a little bit, but it was just a job for me. I'd go and I'd studied, taken a CSCS, and was training athletes to go play football or baseball in college or professional, wherever they were going to go next for a couple months a year. And then when I found CrossFit, I was like, oh shit, this is amazing, because I didn't feel like I was no longer an athlete anymore. I felt like I had something to still compete for personally, right? I compete against myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to stop. And that gave me a huge sense of relief and self-worth that I'm not done. There's still joy that I can get out of my body. And then to share that with people, and have a career where I'm truly blessed to be able to do what I do, and be able to work for CrossFit HQ and spread the word and train people and try to share that passion. It's a dream come true. Looking back at my baseball career versus my training career, this is way more rewarding than playing baseball ever was. Because when I would play baseball, if I pitched good, great. Like, that was for me. Nobody else really valued from that. I didn't change anybody's life by pitching good that day. But here, I get to work with people. I get to try to, impact their longevity and quality of life, or help them through things in a really powerful, tangible, meaningful way. Or I get to show other people how they can do that. It makes me feel like there's a contribution happening. Right. And in turn, I feel rewarded and I feel valuable. So the fact that I have that, I never felt like competitive with my wife, like I should be getting more attention than my wife, or I'm a better athlete than my wife. I had my athletic career. That happened. I was a professional for a while, and now I just want to look good and feel good and try to be an example to people if I can. And she is on that journey as an athlete. Mm-hmm. The difference between her and me is she's been massively successful at it, right? Which is so joyous for me, because all the struggles that I've had as a baseball player, the grind of playing baseball and the pressures of being a professional and all that stuff, and some of the great lessons that I've learned from some managers and other players, I can sometimes have opportunities to bring that to Camille and share those lessons with her as an athlete. But, she's way more talented as a CrossFitter than I ever was as a baseball player. She's the best in the world. Mm-hmm. So, that to be able to have any piece of that, to have any tiny contribution to that, makes me not feel at odds or competitive with her. I feel like part of the team, and the fact that she's my wife makes it that much more emotional and rewarding for me. Which can be challenging to kind of separate those two, because I do coach her, and there's a time to coach and have conversations, but then there's also a time to shut that off and just be a husband, mm-hmm. and just be a partner. So it's a really unique and special thing we've been able to share with each other. When she won the games, that's one of the highlights of my whole life is being able to share that with her, and being able to be part of that with her, even though she was the one who did all the work, got all, she deserves all the glory. It was just as rewarding for me as it was for her, I'm sure.
So cool, man. I hear a lot of similarities for sure. I've learned that when I feel kind of whole, like personally whole, and at peace with myself. And so a couple of things I heard in you, it sounds like you're in a significant state of gratitude, and you're also serving others. And when I feel the same in my life, that's when I feel exactly how you feel, right? I feel like I'm a part of the team. I love contributing. Whereas if I feel and let my insecurities run rampant, and I don't feel like I'm helping others, and I'm not reminding myself what I have to be grateful for, that's when that competitive nature kind of rears its head.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's just a matter of taking a step back, and I have lots of great people around me. I have a great family that gives me a lot of support. Um, Camille's amazing. She's so supportive. Whatever kind of fucked up crazy thing I want to do, she's always on board for it. And I think whenever I do find myself getting a little selfish or a little upset, I just try to take a step back and remind myself how lucky we are, like that the lifestyle that we have to be able to do the things. It's a unique thing to be able to live your passion, for it to be your career, for it to be in your life the way it is with us. That's really unique and special. And I don't know that many people that have that. I look back at some of my best friends from high school and college. Like they're just grinding it out, doing their thing, and that's extremely respectable and takes so much hard work and commitment. But I feel really blessed that I never felt like in a day in my life did I feel like I had to go to work. Mm-hmm. None of this is work for me. I love this. I love every second of this. I love coaching the level ones. I love traveling around. I love coaching Camille. I love where we live. Like this doesn't feel like work because I enjoy it so much. And once you've tasted that, you never want to go back. Mm-hmm. Once you've had a sip of that, you're just like, this is it. I got to keep going.
So cool, man. What's one unexpected thing that you've learned from marriage? And I know could be a tough question, so I've got an example if you need.
Yeah. So Camille and I have both grown as people since we've known each other. I hope to think that I've matured a little bit. When I met her, I was kind of like just a lone guy, a little bit of an athlete, but I got some attention, and then as soon as I met Camille, I feel like my priorities kind of shifted, and I was no longer really that interested in promoting myself or trying to become a name myself. I was just interested in building something with her, building a family with her. And Camille was very young. She didn't speak English so good. We lived far away. We had to overcome a bunch of challenges. As we've both matured, I think overall what we've learned to do is let some of the small stuff slide, whether it's having arguments in a marriage or getting worked up over stuff. There are things where you want to draw your line and pick your battles, and then there are things that you just kind of let go and you learn to walk away and fight another day, because the most important thing is that we just love and support each other. And I've seen her also just, in the past couple of years, she's kind of going through a similar process where she started to, in some ways, just diminish herself and let go of some of the more materialistic things that can infect your life. And she just wants to go out and have fun, be a great athlete, be a great wife, be a valuable person to people. So I hope we continue to grow in those ways. It's getting older. Something changes when you turn 30. I don't know exactly. That's what I keep hearing, man. When you turn 30, I almost think that you don't really know anything until you turn 30. Because that's the first point in your life that you're really like, I'm not that fucking important. Right. It's the first time that you really start considering other people. You start kind of pay attention to some of the things going around the world outside of you. You realize how lucky you are, you start to appreciate your parents. You generally want to get to know who they are. I think something happens, and I think maybe it's a hormonal thing. Maybe it's just a fact of being steady in your life. But I don't think you really know anything until you're about 30.
I like it, man. Well, I've got a few more years of not knowing shit, but yeah, looking forward to it. So I know that, or I think that using humor in a relationship to resolve conflict is like a Jedi move. And I've seen you on so many videos just cracking jokes and kind of tense moments and stuff like that. So is that something that you just do naturally, or is it intentional?
I think my humor kind of comes from some of my old friends and old teammates I would have playing baseball. I remember one game I was playing. I was really fucking nervous. It was a game I think I was playing in like Double A, and it was my first game. And the catcher came up to me, and I was just terrified. And he would say something fucked up or funny, and I'd be like, all right, And I think it's just a way to kind of recalibrate your head a little, to hit the reset button and get out of whatever it is that is messing you up at that moment, whether it's being too much in your own head or letting a situation affect you too much, just to be able to throw a wrinkle in there. Mm-hmm. It resets the brain. It resets the thought process. And, there's nothing better. There's nothing better than laughing, just to get a little laugh, just that little contrast, especially in those moments that aren't quite as laughable, where maybe it's like it's really serious or it's really bad. Just to be able to throw that in there, it gives you new life. It feeds your soul for a second. So I love throwing it in tactfully at times, and I just love laughing. I love it's nothing so serious that we can't laugh.
Right. Love it, man. All right, I got one last thing to close us out. So this is from I guess it's a game. It's called Hypotheticals. So it's like a card with kind of a thought experiment.
Okay.
So it starts out, you are in a plane crash in the Andes Mountains, not unlike those people from the movie Alive, or I suppose like the 1972 Uruguayan rugby team who experienced this situation in reality. As such, you will be forced to consume the human flesh of the people who died on impact. This will be a terrible experience, but it is the only way for you to survive. Fortunately, you do not know any of the victims personally. So the question is, would you rather eat a dead baby, or would you rather eat a dead elderly person? Would gender would gender play a role in the selection process, and how much would it bother you if this meat turned out to be delicious?
Yeah, so like, is the baby meat more tender? Is it like a veal?
I mean, I know as much as you do.
Okay, let's think really fast. So I have to choose with who I'm going to eat.
Yes, exactly.
I think no matter who I ate, I think I would not eat the baby. Yeah, I would eat. I was a choice, boy or girl. I wouldn't eat the baby. Babies are too innocent. Humans have sins. So,
let's see. I want to say they're all dead, though.
They are all dead, but
yeah.
I think I would honor the innocence of life by not eating the baby.
Got it.
And yeah, I mean, fuck. Probably depend on what kind of person that guy was. Like you say, when you eat somebody, you consume their soul, their memories and their spirit. I'd probably pick the best spirited person and just eat the shit out of them.
Yeah. I don't know if I believe any of that. I think I might. I guess either way, it's fresh meat, right? Because they were just alive. So I guess I'm with you. I don't know if I could eat a dead baby.
I could.
Not that I could eat a dead elderly person.
It's a no-win question. Nobody wins in this. Yeah, it's just terrible.
Yeah, and it would bother me quite a bit if it turned out to be delicious.
Yeah,
because I'm a very hungry person. So.
Well, once you get that taste, that taste for human flesh, that's it.
Yeah, man.
The hunger thrives.
All right, brother.
Okay.
This was phenomenal. I really appreciate it. Where can people, find out about the programming you guys are doing and keep up with you personally?
Okay, so Cam's Instagram is Camille Baz, and she's got enough followers. I'm Dave freaking Lipson on Instagram. Our program is the CLB Jacked Unicorn program and CLB Super Strength program. You can find links to those on Cam's Instagram, but also on a website called WODstar, where they have like program links if you're interested in that. But, I don't want to pitch our business too much. We love our athletes online. We got plenty of them. It's a really fun community. I think just being able to, in some ways, maybe be a resource to people, or if anybody's got any questions, just hit me up. Send me a message on Instagram. I'm happy to talk training with you, whatever. I just want to help preserve our community and keep trying to make it as wonderful as it is in the future.
Thank you so much, man. It's so apparent how much you care about other people. And this was a very refreshing conversation. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Mike.
All right, brother. Take care.
All right, dude. Talk to you.